why do people call you HVDC Man of India?
Again, as I said, it's something that I feel very proud about. It's a simple thing because I've had the entire career that I've gone through, 30 years of my corporate life, has always had something or the other to do with HVDC. And so this is really one of the top end technologies that have been developed over the last 75 years, I would say. I started with ABB as a very young engineer, always wanted to work with a company like ABB. I grew in this whole thing from being a young engineer to project management, to business development, to running businesses as a global CEO. So I've seen it all, and I've lived the entire journey of HVDC in my career. So that's why I think that people identify me as an HVDC man, you can say.
You have such a vast experience, so I think you have a rare uh, global perspective very few Indian leaders in this industry have today. So, what is your vision for energy transmission?
Look, sometimes I wonder, and I always am hopeful that, we are able to. My vision is very simple: energy should be free for all. Basic energy should be free for all humankind.
Is that possible?
Very much possible. More closer to what the issues are at home or what the globe is facing today is more to do with increased renewable energy that we need to integrate into the system because of climate change, because of many other things, depleting fossil. We need to be able to sort of have a system that allows for better integration of renewable energy. And HVDC is one such technology which is absolutely suited for doing that. You can do things only with HVDC when it comes to integrating these renewables on a large scale.
Hello everyone, welcome to Leadership Beyond Borders. Today we have special guest with us who has more than 3 decades of experience across the globe in energy, power and transmission industry. Our guest has also led multi-billion dollar P&Ls and driven some complex turnarounds. He has also served some of the most respected organizations as a board member, and people know him as HVDC Man of India. We welcome Mr. Raj Iyer to our show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. I take pride in that adjective that you've just mentioned, HVDC Man of India. Thank you. So, look, it's a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and I'm looking forward to all the questions that you have for me.
Sir, we have seen your profile and we have been following you on LinkedIn since number of years.
Yeah.
So we will definitely like to deep dive into your journey in your career. But before that, I wanted to ask, why do people call you HVDC Man of India?
Look, it's again, as I said, it's something that I feel very proud about. It's a simple thing because I've had the entire career that I've gone through, 30 years of my corporate life, has always had something or the other to do with HVDC. Right? I started with ABB as a very young engineer, very fascinated coming out of the college doing industrial electronics. Always wanted to work with a company like ABB. Got into it. Got into the most recognized and latest technologies at that time, which was HVDC, transmission technology. So I was smitten by it. I was very much in awe of the whole thing. So I stuck to it. I grew in this whole thing from being a young engineer to project management, to business development, to running businesses as a global CEO.
Yeah.
So I've seen it all, and I've lived the entire journey of HVDC in my career. So that's why I think that people identify me as HVDC man, you can say.
Wow, great.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for a person like me or for our audience, how will you explain HVDC technology to a layman?
Right. It's well, HVDC is a transmission technology, right? Now, just as a simple, I can just simplify the whole thing for all of us, I guess. We as consumers of electrical energy are more concerned about when you switch on the switch, whether you get the light. But how often do you try and understand where the whole thing starts and how does it come to your end. So it all starts obviously from the generation side. You can have thermal generation, hydro generation, nuclear generation, renewable, wind, solar, whatever. And then you generate at a particular place, which could be very, very far away from where you consume as a user. And then you have to transmit this power over transmission lines
From power station
to a station
home,
which is closer to home somehow.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And that transmission line has to carry the entire amount of power, because that is the power that is generated, the energy that is generated has to be sold to consumers. So you have to bring this energy, as much as you generate, you have to be able to bring it to the other end where you consume. When you come, you have to, obviously you receive it as a bulk, then you need to distribute it.
Correct.
So there is a distribution network. And then you and I, when you sit into our homes, we are only one fraction of let's say fraction of the consumption that is done, considering the amount of energy generated. So how do I efficiently bring the power which is generated to the user without the losses that go along the way?
So do you mean transmission loss?
Transmission losses, essentially transmission losses. So that is one aspect where HVDC stands out for long distance transmissions. If you take transmissions above, say, 800 kilometers, it becomes more important to look at transmission losses, because if you lose around 15-20% along the way, that is a loss in revenue for the people who are selling the power as well. And it's a criminal waste in a way. So if there is a technology which brings this 15-20% loss to less than 2%, then this is a major gain. And that actually changes the whole economics of the whole thing. So how do you do this? You're able to do this in a way that allows for energy, which is then power which is generated. It is taken at the place which is generated, and you convert that into DC. The voltage is DC. And then you transmit over DC lines. You bring on the other side, and then you invert it back so that you can feed it into the distribution network. Yeah. This requires some technology, some amount of electronics, power electronics at very high voltages. But this is so fascinating that you're able to control the amount of power, you are able to control the dynamics of the grid in which this is set up, including frequency. And so this is really one of the top-end technologies that have been developed over the last 75 years, I would say. Now, more closer to what the issues are at home or at what the globe is facing today is more to do with increased renewable energy that we need to integrate into the system. Because of climate change, because of many other things, depleting fossil, we need to be able to sort of have a system that allows for better integration of renewable energy. And HVDC is one such technology which is absolutely suited for doing that. Now, I will not get into more technical parts here, but this is just so that you know, you can do things only with HVDC when it comes to integrating these renewables on a large scale. Of course, you have other technologies like STATCOM and flexible AC transmission system technologies, but pure AC transmission technologies will not be able to solve the grid problem.
Okay.
So this is what HVDC is in a nutshell.
Okay, that's great. So how HVDC is different than HVAC? Can you quickly explain the difference?
So if I give you a metaphor or an analogy, let's say that AC is like jogging. You're running from point A to point B. Let's say that you're running a couple of kilometers with a load. Load meaning you go and buy something at the store and you're supposed to reach the other end, but the only way to do it is to run. So what happens is, if you're supposed to run with 10 kilograms, within a matter of 200 meters, you will feel tired. So you need to rest. So you keep the bags down, you keep the load down, you recover, and then you start running again. Another 200 meters, you keep it down. By the time in 2 kilometers, you do it 10 times, essentially. Why do you have to do that? Because you lose your ability to carry, right? Versus that, imagine that you're going on a roller skates and you carry this and you just go without any stop, because you don't need to stop, because the roller skates is not as tiresome as running, right? So essentially, you don't lose your energy. There are no losses. There are no transmission losses.
Mm-hmm.
So you're able to go from point A to point B without big losses that you experience. So if you're running, that means at 200 meters, you need some place to sit down. You need some infrastructure to sit down and recover.
Okay.
So in an AC network, if you do it on a longer distance, high power at very large distances, you need intermediate substations that allows for recovery of voltage, because the voltage, because of load, goes down.
Mm-hmm.
And then the capability of the transmission line to carry the load forward reduces furthermore.
Okay.
So therefore, you need more and more substations in between. More substations meaning more expensive. So if you add up all the expenses, it becomes more expensive than the HVDC technology. That is why they prefer HVDC over HVAC.
Okay, I think that was a great example, a very easy to understand
Yeah.
example you told us. So, talking about your own venture, which is Gridpro Ventures, right? So, we would like to understand what is Gridpro and why the name is Gridpro. What is the science
Yeah.
behind this?
Look, when I came back to India, this was about 2 years ago. This was after spending about 30 odd years in corporate, right? And if you have been reading my LinkedIn profile, you know, 25 years out of which I've spent with a company called ABB, which is again a multinational, Swiss-Swedish multinational. And the last 5 years, I was with GE as the head of their global business for grid integration solutions, right? Which is essentially HVDC facts, among other things. So it was enough and more in terms of my own sort of work with the corporate. 30 years, I think, is a good enough time. And that too, I've had the pleasure and the advantage of being in multiple places over the years. I started my journey with Sweden, and then we moved to China, a number of years between Sweden and China, then went to Japan, spent a few years in Tokyo, went to Zurich, we spent a few years there.
Wow.
Then after switching to GE, I came to Paris, a few years in Paris, 4 years in Paris, last 2 years in London. Then it was, I would say it was enough of travel, and we somehow wanted to come back to India, considering the fact that India itself is now India has embarked on a fantastic growth story, and a lot of transmission infrastructure is also being developed, renewable energy, big time. So I said, this is the right time to return back to India, because we always wanted to return back. So we came here, and I gave a serious thought to whether or not I should join any other company as a CEO in India and try and do something there. But then I thought it much better if I start my own thing and explore the possibility of giving my support to multiple companies at the same time, which are seeking support to start businesses, or if they're already into businesses, they're looking for growing in their businesses. And in particular, if they want to enter into the transmission domain or HVDC domain, how do I help them, or what is the strategy that they need to adapt? If they are looking, or some Indian companies want to grow, particularly in this business, how to help them. So with that idea, and with the ambition that I can at least impart some of the experience that I've collected over the years towards development of grid in India, that's how the name Gridpro.
Okay.
That was the name that came through. The other side of it is also, if I can become the channel, or the company can become the channel, to kind of bring my network, which are experts across this field globally, to be able to sort of give the services through Gridpro, which allows for a grid on the background as well. It's a network. Grid is a network. So it's a network of experts and like-minded people who would then be available through Gridpro. So therefore, there are two views to this name, or two perspectives to this name, Gridpro Ventures.
So now that you have such a vast experience across multiple countries, can you tell us some anecdotes which are top of your mind? Any stories which you can share with our audience?
Yeah, quite interesting stories I can actually think of, because these, when you stay in different cultures, um, there are obviously some stark differences that you see suddenly when you come across a different type of culture, and some of them are quite funny because of course, from a perspective, it is very funny. China stood out quite well in that category, I would say. This was very early when we were there the first time, because we were there two times in our career. So this was very early, late 90s, 1999, when I went there as the project manager for the Three Gorges to Shanghai. This was our HVDC transmission project, where they were trying to take the hydroelectric power generated at the Three Gorges Dam. Three Gorges, by the way, is the world's biggest hydroelectric power station and dam.
Wow.
Um, so that generates about 26 gigawatts. 26 gigawatts is like 26 nuclear power stations, full size, in one place. So that you know what
So it's a
scale we're
large
talking.
scale.
It's a very large scale hydroelectric. So anyway, from that one, there was supposed to be a transmission. There was a transmission supposed to be built by ABB with HVDC, taking power up to 3.5 gigawatts, 3,500 megawatts to Shanghai. There was one link, and the other link was taking the same amount of power, 3,500 megawatts, to Guangdong, which is the south of China. So I went there as the site manager, and we were stationed in Yichang. Yichang is the place which is in Hubei province, center of the country, very close to the dam. And this was ABB's, I would say, very initial phase in China for HVDC. And there was not a big project executed before that by ABB in China. So this is one of the first ones. And for me, it was the first time in China. So I had no other reference. So we had signed a contract, and the contract was a certain amount of dollars, which is roughly, I would say, about $400-500 million. And it was supposed to be delivered in 48 months. So there was a big ceremony with the state grid chairman, the NDRC, National Development Reform, the ministry, ABB CEO. Everybody had come to Beijing, and there was a big ceremony signing the whole thing, and a lot of publicity for it. And then when we went to the site for starting the project and everything, the first meeting, the customer representative came to the site, and we had this large conference room where they all came, and the customer representative said, look, we are very happy that we are starting this and everything, but please remember that this project has to be completed in 42 months instead of 48. Now, as soon as they said that, my team, which was from Sweden, the entire team, we had about 15 odd people at that time with me, but then eventually went on to 50 people. But in that meeting, I remember we had 15 people, and they were completely in shock, because in Scandinavia, or in Europe particularly, there's tremendous planning. And we had day-to-day planning for delivering in 48 months, with resource planning, material planning, how to produce something in-house, what is to be done outside. So day-to-day planning was there. And then people come and say that you got to do it in 42 months. Now, obviously, the reaction was no. And this guy was completely adamant, the representative from the customer. He said, no way, you have to deliver in 42. It went on for half an hour, and the decibel levels in the room were increasing because everyone was getting heated up. I could see that this was completely going in the wrong direction.
So how you handled it?
So I was listening, and then I realized something, which then I took this State Grid Corporation was the customer. So I took the customer representative outside the room, and I spoke to him. I said, look, Mr. Liu, I have to understand where this is coming from, because you have to understand we have signed something which is a contract, and we have all the planning done to deliver. So why are you asking us to do this, and how can we do it? He said, no, I don't care how you do it, but this is where. I said, please tell me, what is the compulsion? He said, no, my leader, which is the chairman of State Grid, my leader has already committed this to the president of China, that Shanghai will receive power from this dam by this date. It happens to be 42 months. Now I cannot go back and say, no, you have to deliver. Okay, now I see the point. I said, look, if it's a commitment given to the president of China by the state grid chairman, in China, you have to realize that there is no, you cannot say no to anything that comes from the top. You have to accept and make it happen. Now, these people did not know that the company they had hired comes from a different culture. But we have to find a way. So I said to him, look, is it okay if you get an answer from ABB that we will try everything possible to make it happen? And we will try our best. We will put in the resources to make it happen. Is that good enough answer for you? He said, yes. This is an acceptable answer, and we can minute this in the minutes of meeting, and I can go back to Beijing and give this answer. So we went inside, I explained to my people, and then we signed this saying that we will try our best. Now, of course, we had to put the effort to see what we can do to expedite and deliver in 42. Of course, it was impossible in that sense, but we did everything possible. So we could come to a point where we could deliver in 44 months instead of 42. But the last 2 months, we are required to do an extensive amount of transmission test, where you have to run power on the link, but it's not commercial. It's not declared commercial. You have to do lots of tests. So we had just started running some minimal power and starting to do tests. And it was month 42 and this date. And I realized outside the site, we heard a lot of firecrackers. And I started to wonder what happened. Was this something has burst open, or what is the big noise? Then we went outside, we saw people were rejoicing, and there were firecrackers, and everybody was cheering and congratulating each other. I asked this person, I said, what happened? No, we have told the leader that there is power on the link, and this is what we promised, and we have delivered. So now you can continue to do your test for 2 more months. It doesn't matter to them. So that was one of the things we realized, that it is so important for them to live up to the commitment given by the top leader. And it doesn't really matter whether it is fully completed or partially completed. If there is power running on the link, you can continue doing the test. They can declare victory. So this was one of the biggest takeaways for us.
So majority of time in your career, you lived in China, right?
Well, okay, you can say probably the longest stay was in China, in the sense that we went there twice. This was the first one was Three Gorges.
So what do you think is the difference between Indian and Chinese culture when it comes to corporate?
Well, corporate culture is very different. But again, I was part of the multinational. Multinational corporate in China is more or less in line with what the rest of the globe is, with some peculiarities of each country. It's the same. If you look at ABB in China, ABB in India, ABB in Russia, or ABB in France, there will be some country-specific things. But otherwise, there is a multinational culture that trickles down from the corporate. But generally speaking, I would say the working culture in China, if you're asking me that question, I think working culture in China is extremely diligent. People are very hardworking because they know that there is no way they cannot deliver. So they have to put in all the effort to make it happen. If it takes long hours, it takes long hours. There's no excuse. In that sense, there's no work-life balance if they have been given a task. But they are very proud of what they achieve. They're very proud of what the technologies that they have now, invented or mastered. So in that sense, I think it's a very strong work ethic. It is something that is a big learning for us as well. I did quite well in terms of getting back a lot of things from China, in terms of their planning and delivering to the T on the plan. And this goes back into the political circles as well, because they have a lot of good engineers and economists in the political side. So you can see that they plan quite a lot, and they also try and ensure that the execution is done in the right way. So that was a big learning for me.
So what was your key takeaway? If I ask one single key takeaway from China, what will it be?
Commitment to deliver and accountability.
Okay.
So people have to have accountability. You cannot just say that I'm the leader and there is no accountability.
Okay.
So you will lose your position if you don't take accountability.
Okay. So any more stories you'd like to share? Any from
Yeah,
any
one
other
of the
country?
things that I have I really has left a mark in my memory, I would say, is my interaction with Mr. Son. This was in Japan. Mr. Son is the chairman of one of the biggest, I would say, companies in the world called SoftBank Corporation.
Okay.
So SoftBank Corporation, obviously everybody knows. I mean, it is obviously into multiple things, including telecom, including energy. It started as a gaming software industry at the start, many,
Mhm.
many years ago. But Mr. Son, being the visionary that he is, he's got technology funds in billions of dollars. He's also been instrumental in bringing up Alibaba.com. He invested some, I'd say, some tens of millions of dollars and came back with a few billions by the end of it. So he's known for his contribution to multiple industries, including AMD in Europe. So anyway, so there was a time when, if you remember, in 2011, uh, unfortunately, Japan went through a huge tsunami experience, and there was this biggest earthquake, and one of the nuclear stations suffered quite a bit. It was Fukushima. So it was hit by the tsunami, and then they had this huge nuclear disaster. That meant that they took a dramatic decision to shut down the entire nuclear industry. All the nuclear plants were shut down. And at that time, in 2011, about 40% of the energy came from nuclear.
Mhm.
And you can imagine that when they shut down everything, uh, they realized that, look, they cannot manage by transferring power because they didn't have enough transmission lines to transfer from one region to the other to support. Uh, there came a time when Mr. Son realized that this is the time he should also then enter the energy industry. And he had the ambition to enter into renewable energy. And he was um, the first mover, so to say, in terms of recognizing the importance of renewable energy and what it can do to Japan. So I happened to be in one of the meetings where he was trying to get in touch with the European, I would say, energy agency. I knew some of the people there, and they said, well, if you want to enter into this, you have to also talk to somebody from the industry.
Mhm.
And at that time, I was in Beijing, and I was heading the power grids business for that region. So when the Swedish person called me, he said, Mr. Son and SoftBank wants to enter into energy, and they're looking for some Asia supergrid concept. I want you to be a part of this discussion, so let us organize a meeting. So, and I thought it'll be somebody from SoftBank's office, Mr. Son's office, who would be in the call and all that. But as luck has to have it, it was Mr. Son himself on the call. And the
Oh.
person from Sweden never managed to get into the call. So I was one on one with Mr. Son for half an hour. I was in Beijing, he was in Tokyo.
Mhm.
And he was like a child explaining to me what he wanted to do with the Asia Super Ring or Asia Super Grid at that time. So what he really wanted to do was to bring power from Mongolia, which is, the desert from Mongolia, a lot of solar and wind, connected across to Russia, bring from one end of Russia to the other end of Russia, Sakhalin, which is the far east of Russia, which is closer to Hokkaido, which is the northern part of Japan. So from there, drop down to Hokkaido. All of this with HVDC.
Mhm.
And from Hokkaido, come to Tokyo with an HVDC link. From Tokyo, come to the west, which is Kyushu in Japan. From Kyushu, go to Busan. Busan is in Korea, South Korea.
Mhm.
From there to Seoul, and from Seoul to Shanghai, Shanghai to Beijing, and back to Mongolia. So it's a ring. So he wanted to make between 2 to 4 gigawatts of a ring, which is a commercial ring, bringing renewable energy from Mongolia. And so this concept, when he explained to me, I was completely floored. I said, I mean, this is a big visionary. I said, can you come to Tokyo? We need to discuss further. I said, look, I can, but I mean, can you come on Thursday? And we're talking on Monday. Can you come on Thursday? I said, yeah, well, I don't have a visa. Okay, you have a secretary? I said, yes, I have a secretary. Can you send her to the Japanese embassy in Beijing? And I will give the letter to you. Within 4 hours, I have the visa. Wow. And in 2 days, I'm traveling to Tokyo. He sends me his limousine to pick me up at the airport. I'm straight into the conference room, a huge conference room with Mr. Son himself. And what a bundle of energy, I must admit. I've never seen anybody that charged up, energetic. I mean, he had a very short stature, maybe hardly 5 feet, but he used to jump up and down his stool. He had some steps where he was trying to explain on his board, and the energy was really, really remarkable. And he went through the entire plan that he had. He gave the example of why he wants to do this, because geographically they are so far apart. The load patterns and the peak of load is different because of time difference. And the price of energy is also very different. So you can make commercial case or business case. So it was once in a lifetime experience to meet a visionary like Mr. Son. And you can see he has succeeded in everything that he has touched. So this has left a big, big mark in my memory.
Wow. So, how many countries you have lived in, and how many languages you know?
Languages I'm very poor at, but countries, yes. We've lived in Sweden. We went from India to Sweden very early, and a few years, 5, 6 years in Sweden. We were again back between Sweden and China twice. As I said before, China, there was a stint in the central part of China called Yichang. And after going back to Sweden, came back again in Beijing just before the Olympics. And we were there for 5 years. I was running the North Asia power grids business, and also set up a JV there, running the JV as the president. Mm-hmm. Then from there, we went to Tokyo. It was about 3-4 years in Tokyo. And there I was also running the power systems business for ABB and working with Hitachi to set up a joint venture for Japan. Then from there, we went to Zurich, Switzerland. I was then asked to be at the headquarters of ABB. So a few years, 2-3 years in Zurich. And then I got headhunted by General Electric, where they had acquired Alstom, the business of Alstom in France, and that was the grid business. And they wanted somebody from outside of Alstom, or let's say from the industry, to come and help them run one of their businesses, which was grid integration. So I thought it was a great chance, and that took us from Zurich to Paris. And we spent 4 years in Paris. It was also during the COVID struck in between. So the last after that 4 years, we decided to go to London, because one of my biggest units in GE was in London, or in Stafford, which was an hour from London. So that was 2 years there, and then back home to India now.
So, how difficult it was to take these decisions? You've traveled with your family,
Yeah.
and your kids
Yeah,
were.
yeah. So we have one kid, and we traveled with him, and myself and my wife Pooja. We definitely enjoyed a lot. Look, we did not think too much. To be honest with you, there's a lot of thinking that this generation does, but fortunately, unfortunately, we just took everything in the stride. We decided to go along with a youngster who was about 6 months old when we left India. And we saw him go off to college. From Tokyo, he went to Boston. We went to Zurich. And yeah, it was a fantastic journey with a lot of adventure. I mean, it doesn't come without adventure, so you have to accept. And fortunately, all of us, we loved all the adventure that we went through. And there's a lot of learning. You take back a lot of things that you are unaware of. And it develops you as a personality as well. I mean, that's what I think. It's an evolution.
Yeah, correct. So now, talking about some technicalities.
Yeah.
Can you throw some light on energy mix in India versus in other countries?
It's a good question. So look, energy mix in India today, or let's say just 5-6 years ago, or say 7-8 years ago, India has always been predominantly a coal-based, I would say, energy mix. Essentially coal, 80-85% is coal. We are slowly and gradually moving towards more renewable energy in the mix. Right now, we have just about 10% to 12% of energy which is coming out of renewable in the mix. You may have better installed capacity, but not everything is coming into the mix because of losses in the efficiency and everything around that. The ambition for us is to go from that level to about 50 to 60% in the next 15 years, right? And a lot of effort is being put to set up renewable energy infrastructure. You can see solar plants everywhere in Rajasthan, Gujarat, many other places. Wind is also a big part of it. And this is very good in terms of development, right? It also requires enormous amount of planning to incorporate this much amount of renewable energy into your energy mix, or let's say used energy by the consumers. For that to happen, you need to have the grid, which is the backbone of the energy mechanism, to be stable. Now, that's why I'm coming back to my favorite topic of HVDC, right? So the grid is stabilized. When you say stable grid, you have to come to two essential parameters, and that is voltage and frequency. If your voltage goes down, your equipment underperforms. If your frequency goes up or down, your equipment can get damaged. The motors can start overshooting, or they can underperform, and the copper can burn, and material gets damaged. So to stabilize the grid is the most essential part, so that the consumers do not see the bad effects of using power. Now, as you transition from thermal energy or coal-based or turbine-based to solar, which is, to start with, it is not a moving turbine, right? Solar is a panel. So you take sun energy and you transform and you send it to the grid. So there is no inertia. There is no mechanical strength into this thing, so solar energy. So mechanical strength, when you run a turbine, it also gives stability in terms, because if you, let's say, suddenly have a load shutdown, meaning one of the big industrial loads or city which is having the industrial estate suddenly has a problem in the substation and you cut off that load, what will happen? The generation doesn't know that. The generation will overshoot. But it doesn't overshoot immediately because of the machine. The machine takes time to kind of respond. That can help many a times the grid to recover, because if you have some alternative, the machine doesn't immediately overshoot, therefore you have the inertia. Now in solar, what happens is solar doesn't have anything running there. So it is what it is. So you have to simulate this inertia using electronics. And this is what this HVDC and FACT solutions do. They actually fool the system, saying that, look, this is having inertia, which is virtual, and they try and compensate for loss of power by increasing the power on the other lines, trying to manage the frequency and voltages. So therefore, when you go from certain level, which is 5-10% in the energy mix of renewable, to 50, 60, 70%, which is what Europe is today, you have to have this HVDC and interconnections and FACT solutions in the grid. Make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So now that we are talking about energy mix in India, what is the level of investment? What is the vision or strategies or opportunities in India?
Right. So, look, I've been closely following what has been mentioned by the Central Electricity Authority, the CEA, which actually does the planning. From what I understand is India, which is right now in the range of 180 gigawatts to 200 gigawatts of installed energy, renewable energy, they want to go up to 530 gigawatts in the next 5 years, by 2030. It's a huge deal, right? To be able to increase this to 530 gigawatts of renewable energy, there is an investment to the tune of 450 to 500 billion US dollars in the next 2-3 years. This is the extent. And we're talking about overall there's multiple things happening, but I'm just talking about the energy, right? Energy infrastructure to incorporate, to build renewable energy infrastructure, to build the grid infrastructure, to incorporate this into the energy mix. This is the amount of money we're talking about. Now, the scale is huge, right? 450 to 500 billion US dollars is a huge amount of money to be spent in 2 years, 3 years. So, what can be done? So, are we ready to take advantage of this? Because to me, this is like, if this amount of money is spent on infrastructure for the country, I feel that the benefit to the country should be at least 5 to 6x times. X being the amount of money spent, right? So the economic benefit has to be more than that, much more than that, 5 times, 6 times.
5x of ROI minimum.
Right. So how does that happen? Because you plan it in a way that, what are the technologies to be implemented? Are we having the technologies? Are the Indian companies able to participate? What are the tie-ups with foreign technologies? What are the things that can be done to set up more industries, more jobs, more skills? Where do we look at those new industries? Where do we bring in the small and medium enterprises into this supply chain? So how are the areas which are really ignored today in terms of development? How can those be brought up to scale to be able to contribute to the economy and to contribute to this infrastructure boom? So a lot of these things are question marks, which I'm sure that a lot of politicians are looking at. The Commerce Ministry, the Industry Ministry, the Power Ministry, they're hopefully working together to ensure that this impact on the economy and the impact on public life is also brought about as we invest so much of money in building an infrastructure, which is in our lifetime will be once in a lifetime, right? Because you don't build this every year. You set up something like that and you expect that to work for 25, 30 years before the next overhaul is done, right? So this is what I believe is a huge opportunity for a lot of new companies to contribute, to come up to scale, to grow along with infrastructure development, because you always need a push for economic growth. And if the infrastructure development is one of the things that is giving that push, there is nothing that can stop Indian companies to get onto the train and take a fast track to growth.
But now that you have talked about GE, Siemens, and ABB, so many multinational companies, are there any Indian players in industry?
Look, in the power infrastructure, a lot. Generally speaking, we are quite mature in terms of product supplies into power infrastructure. If you come into very specific things like HVDC, you can see the number reduces dramatically, right? Because this is a very niche field. And when you're talking about 500 and 800 kilovolt DC lines, the amount of players that are operating in that space are limited, especially in the area of transformers, in the area of bushings, in the area of converters. We do have Hitachi, which is ABB, which is now Hitachi. You have GE and you have Siemens, who have established bases in India. And we do have other companies which are coming up to kind of compete or also be part of this thing as product suppliers. But as solution suppliers, I think these are the three big names that come to the fore, which is okay, because this is a journey that they have taken over the last 70 years. They have built up this legacy. But Indian companies have to step up in terms of product deliveries. They have to participate in this together with these big companies, multinationals, ensure that new products are being introduced and those products are available for incorporating into the projects.
So you said that European grid has 70% of renewable energy in it, right? So how are they able to achieve it?
So 70% is on an average. There are days in the month where you always also have seen 100% renewable energy fed into the grid. So it is possible.
Which country?
Oh, it is the European grid, right? So
Okay.
you've seen Germany, you've seen Denmark, you've seen Scandinavia. There, possibly some days you can get 100% renewable. And the thing is, it is very typical of European grid to be called as the European grid. It is truly a European grid. Although each country has its own grid, they also have managed to build over the last 20, 25 years a European network, which is intra-country or inter-country connections using HVDC. Now, Denmark to Norway, Germany, Sweden, Finland, you got Spain, you got Portugal, you got Italy, France, all these countries. Also, to a certain extent now, UK is connected to the mainland of Europe. So these are planned since early 90s, these interconnections. And these are all merchant lines in a way that they're commercial lines, links. And for linking these different countries, you need HVDC. And this was the technology. That is why the companies which are European, like Alstom at that time, which is now GE, you got ABB, you got Siemens, which are European companies. They have developed this technology and deployed it very well. So by having these interconnections, they are able to naturally incorporate more renewable energy. For example, I'll give you Norway, which is a country which has got 100% hydro resource. This is 100% hydro. There's nothing else. Whereas if you see country like Denmark, which has a lot of wind, but wind energy by nature is intermittent. You can have some period where the wind blows very, very much, and there are some period where there is nothing blowing, right? Hydro as such is consistent. But what has happened by putting a link between Denmark and Norway is that the arrangement is such that when there is a lot of wind, the link allows for power to flow from Denmark to Norway, and that power is used to raise the potential of water. So they have built up places which is like a storage, which is called pumped storage. So you pump water to a higher elevation and you reserve at a higher reservoir. So when there is no wind, the power flows in the other direction using hydropower, because then they open the gates and they let that reservoir take, the hydropower, and this hydropower is fed into the European grid. So it is a link which is working both ways. So you don't waste the energy when it's produced. It's using water as a battery.
Okay.
And using the battery when there's no wind. So this allows for better utilization of the European situation. Similarly, you've got other arrangements between Sweden, Norway, you've got Germany and all the other places. So that is one strategy by which you can build up a resilient grid, which allows for more integration of renewables.
So you have such a vast experience. So I think you have a rare uh, global perspective. Very few Indian leaders in this industry have today. So what is your vision for energy transmission? Where is the future leading?
Yeah, look, sometimes I wonder, uh, and I always am hopeful that, we are able to. My vision is very simple: energy should be free for all.
How
Basic energy should be free for all humankind.
is that possible?
Very much possible. Now, if I just give you an example, if you look at your telecom industry, today all of us are able to speak on our phone using internet across the world, and you hardly pay anything for it, right? You pay for many other services that you have from the telecom companies, but this telecom infrastructure is I would say, a grid of cables, underwater cables that have been laid across continents. This was started already 50 years ago. By now, all the continents are connected using telecom cables all across the ocean. This infrastructure has been paid off twice with the money that they have collected from the people over the years. This has been paid off multiple times. So they can afford to give you services, basic services, for free. They can, of course, they need to upgrade to 5G and all the other things that will come, and more facilities. They invest more, than they want some recovery. But if you want to speak to people between countries, basic dialogue can be done without any money, right? So this is free. I see the same vision for energy as well. If you're able to build an infrastructure based on renewable energy with the available technology, which is already available today, and you lay a global infrastructure which connects the globe, I think you're able to harness energy for everyone without having to pay anything in the end. This is the vision I have.
Wow, we never thought about it.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, we have many other things that we need to think about, and very pressing problems that we will see in the future, which includes clean air, which includes clean water, basic food and agriculture issues. I don't think we have time for thinking about energy problems. Energy should be the facilitator to solve other problems.
Correct.
And that's how I see energy.
Wow, great. We don't have Planet B, so it's much important.
Yeah.
You are working with so many companies, mid-sized companies. You are also on board of some listed companies. You're working as an advisor to so many companies. You worked with MNCs. So what do you feel is difference between a startup, a mid-sized company, and a MNC?
Yeah. The difference is pretty stark. Um, the difference is in the focus
Mm-hmm.
and the stage at which state at which this company is today.
Mm-hmm.
And rightfully so, the difference has to be there because as you said, I worked about 30 years with two of the biggest giants in this particular industry, right? ABB and GE. So they are the biggest multinational names that you can think of. Um, I'm also on the board of this mid-sized companies as part of the advisory as well as independent directors and all that. So I see the struggles which are very different in nature, right? So uh, mid-sized companies have normally a problem to figure out, uh, growth in that sense. They have the potential for growth, but the question is they don't have the wherewithals or the resources to be able to grow to the extent, because multinational companies have already done that phase and they have grown to the extent that they have the feet on the ground multiple places all over the place. So they can only trigger and have the right people in different countries to be able to bring about growth. If it is one region versus the other, they can play around with this. Mid-sized companies have the limitation because they are in that phase. They know that they have to grow, but where exactly they can grow at this time and where they have to put the money to be able to sort of grow the most. I think this is the dilemma. Should they do more of the same, or should they find something which is an adjacency to be able to grow? Should they invest in-house in technology, or should they acquire the technology? What is that they will have to do to be able to attract or to be able to derive the most growth for the money that they put on the table?
Mm-hmm.
And some of the companies are also listed now. More and more IPOs happening in India. You can see that mid-sized companies get into the IPO phase. They collect a lot of money from the market, and they have to deliver. So they have a vision for delivering. Then they have to have the support. This is where I come in as well, because I can give them the ideas. I can show them the vision of which are the areas and technologies they can sort of get into, which allows them to get the better return for the buck they intend to spend. And this is obviously public money, so it's even more important that you guide them properly. On the other hand, startups are in a very different phase altogether. Startups are always stranded for cash, right? So startups need to really be careful. They can have brilliant ideas and they can paint a big picture. They need to attract people to come and invest. A lot of investors will come, but they will also want to have the biggest share of their equity. The startups always want to believe that this is a great idea and I don't want to dilute my equity. I want to keep it and encash it to the end. But they have to also have the vision to be able to, or the discipline to be able to spend the money correctly to be able to get where they want to get. So there are different sides to everything. And these are interesting times when I'm able to work with all these different types of people and understand that. It's a learning for me too. I mean, I have to admit that I've not been into, let's say, the conventional startup phase, but I do see I've used somebody else's money to invest and get the better returns, if you know what I mean. Big multinational companies also have lots of cash, but they're also only giving cash to businesses that they know that they're going to get the biggest return. So when I was the CEO, I was fighting for my share for the business in that big pool where multiple businesses were trying to get the best. But we need to also deliver. So I've come through that drill, so I can guide those smaller startups as well as mid-sized companies into doing the right thing to get the best return for money.
So, how do you see evolution of AI in industry and how it is going to impact, or how a youngster who wants to pursue career like you as a global leader? So, what will be the piece of advice you will give?
Look, I mean, AI is as much as an opportunity as it is seen as a threat. Uh, I personally believe that every generation will obviously evolve with the technologies that come with it, and they will find their own way.
Mhm.
I'm probably not in a very good position to to guide somebody who's. I mean, I have not come into the AI generation myself, but all I can say is that from what I've seen, uh, one has to be very strong in whatever domain they choose. Anyone can choose any domain. The only thing is that you need to really be strong in your domain, and AI will allow for a better execution of things, a better outcome if you ask the right questions. A domain confidence or a domain knowledge or a base knowledge of the domain is allowing you to be above the rest in terms of asking the right questions.
Mhm.
So my focus would be always on domain.
Okay.
And my advice to youngsters is obviously leaving the AI part aside, I think they need to really have the patience because today's generation is known for impatience, right? The attention span, the impatience, the drive to go faster is good, but you need to give yourself some time to give a little bit depth to what you're trying to pursue. You can switch, but you cannot escape the requirement that you need to have in terms of gathering more and more depth in a particular domain that allows you in the long run to do better than the rest. So impatience is good for prosperity, but you have to really find the balance in getting the depth along with it.
Correct. So when the calculator was invented, people were against it.
Yeah,
Similar is the case with AI
yeah,
now.
exactly. You cannot escape it, but you have to understand how to live with it.
Yeah, we need to adapt that
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
use that technology in our daily lives, right? Wow, such a fantastic and informative session we had. I hope your vision for free energy globally
Yeah.
will come true, and will be in we will be living in different world altogether.
Look, I sincerely believe that it's possible. I am a big proponent of uh, a sustainable and healthy life that one has to sort of aspire to live. And I've always dreamt of being in a situation to support and work with technologies that enable a better planet.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that I got the chance to work with one such technology, which is an enabler for a better planet. HVDC is the name of the game. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be the HVDC man.
Okay. So after listening to you, I know that there are so many people in the audience who wants to get in touch with you and connect with you and get some good guidance about the businesses and this technology. So I know that you have a website called gridproventures.com. I hope it's okay if they
Oh, yeah, yeah,
contact with
absolutely.
you through the
Absolutely.
website and phone numbers you
That
mentioned
is
there,
the
right?
idea. So, really welcome anyone who wants to get in touch with me. I'm always available. I'm very passionate about it. So, please do visit gridproventures.com and all the coordinates for me are available there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you,
you very
Gaurav.
much for taking time from your busy schedule. Thank you very much,
Thank
Raj.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank
Gaurav.
you.
Pleasure.